If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, and share so we can find others like yourself. Welcome to the Bitcoin Basics podcast with your hosts, Faris and Gordon from CoinCompass.com, enabling you to safely buy and securely store your Bitcoins. All resources are in the show notes and description, including our disclaimer. Visit BitcoinBasicsPodcast.com to subscribe and discover other free content.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bitcoin Basics podcast. I'm your host, Gordon. I'm here with Faris, who I'll introduce in just a second. This is a very special podcast because it's actually the first in a series that we're doing called Bitcoin Begins, a beginner guide to money, currency, and Bitcoin. So before I get too far into it, Faris, how about you tell us what the series is and why we're doing it?
So we wrote an ebook a couple of years ago now, Gordon, where we basically explained Bitcoin, currency, and money. And we're revisiting it now simply because we still get asked a lot of misconceptions about Bitcoin. So a lot's happened with the technology side of Bitcoin. It's being picked up by hedge funds. And so there's quite a few things happening in Bitcoin, but there's still a huge misunderstanding about the basics. And so this series is to help people understand the basics of Bitcoin, what it is in essence. What is Bitcoin? What makes it so different to currencies or any other digital money that we've seen before?
This series is for my family and friends who ask what is Bitcoin, and I send them a link and say, go watch this. So Faris, what is Bitcoin? Can you tell me in 10 words or less?
Oh, wow. You're putting me on the spot there in 10 words or less. Okay. All right. So this series, we look at, to understand Bitcoin, we've broken down this series into understanding basically what is the difference between currency and money, because there is a difference and you want to understand that. We also want to unpack the environment around Bitcoin. So specifically the 2008 financial crisis, because that's when Bitcoin came out. You want to understand just the debt system that we're in. You want to understand what is fiat currency. So we need to unpack economics. At the same time, we need to look at the technology behind Bitcoin called the blockchain. And this is where Gordon's area of expertise comes in. You want to understand the technology side of it. So the series breaks down these huge concepts, which are all new. And it's called Bitcoin Basics because that's what we want to do. We want to make this easy to understand for everyone. You don't have to be tech savvy. You don't have to be a finance or computer geek to really understand this stuff. We want to take the complex world of Bitcoin and make it simple.
Excellent, Faris. I couldn't say that better myself because there are a lot of podcasts out there and YouTube videos that I watch, which are absolutely fantastic. But after watching a video of what is the blockchain, 45 minutes later, you're kind of still wondering, well, what exactly is it? So yeah, we attempt to do what Faris says, and a lot of people ask me, what is Bitcoin? And then I kind of, the next question I ask them is, what is money? So I went through this journey myself. So these are the same sort of questions that I was asking when I went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. I sort of took a step back and said, well, what is money? What's the difference between, say, money and currency? What was there before Bitcoin? Was Bitcoin sort of the first digital currency? And what was the history and the evolution there? And what exactly is Bitcoin? Not just from a technical point of view, which we will look at, the blockchain, but also from an economics and fundamental analysis point of view. What are the core economic principles? And what are the properties of money and what makes Bitcoin good money and hard money? So I guess the next question is, Faris, who are you? Who am I? What are we doing here?
So yeah, this was an interesting journey we had. So Gordon and I have been friends for well over 20 years now. And Gordon, I remember, told me about Bitcoin in 2013, 2014. And I looked at getting into it, and that's when it had a huge correction from $1,000 back down to $200 because of the Mt. Gox hack. This was an exchange that got hacked. Like many people at the time, I misunderstood what happened. I thought essentially Bitcoin was broken. Something went wrong and it failed. 2016, I started looking into more detail because I saw an interview where someone was explaining Bitcoin from an economics point of view, and I hadn't given that any thought. I thought it was just simply internet funny money or used for games like Second Life or something. And when this person who comes from who's an investor, trader, macro trader, they start explaining it, then I started looking at it from an economics point of view and really started appreciating it a lot more. So I had people coming up to me saying, first, what is this Bitcoin thing? Because this was the bull market in 2017. And I found myself explaining Bitcoin to people. To do that, I had to understand it myself. So I spent hours every day for 6 months just learning about this thing. And yeah, that's when I approached you, Gordon.
And that's when we formed coincompass.com, our business to educate people on how to buy Bitcoin safely and, more importantly, how to store them safely as well. But I came across Bitcoin fairly early. I had it on a podcast, the Security Now podcast with Steve Gibson. So huge shout out to him. And I kind of saw that as, World of Warcraft, funny money sort of thing. But I quickly realized that this was actually legit and it was the real thing. So I feel even more stupid than everyone else because I kind of knew that it would be a big deal. I guess the reason why I kind of didn't put my entire life savings into it, which I should have, was that I've seen several attempts at a digital currency or what we call a cryptocurrency before. There were plenty of attempts, and Bitcoin is actually about the 30th attempt at this. So I just thought it'd be shut down like everything else. The technology is interesting. There seems to be a real sort of community behind it. But eventually, once Bitcoin got above, say, $100, governments around the world would just shut it down, and that will be it, and everyone will have lost their money. So I was kind of in that really naive, ignorant camp, I guess. My background is in IT and in particular information security. So I've worked for Australia's largest bank, all the way down to a software development company who did educational software for kids, bananas in pajamas, if you know that. And pretty much everything in between. So yeah, I obviously come from that background, and my passion is information security, but I'm also a jack of all trades. So Faris and I are both educators. Faris has lectured at university, and I've taught computer science at international high schools. So yeah, coincompass.com was a meeting of the minds, a mind meld between sort of someone with a fundamental economics background and someone with a fundamental technical background who had both taught and are both educators. So for us, it was a no-brainer. And it also scratched not just a professional itch, but I guess a hobbyist itch as well, because we were talking with each other on Skype and whatnot all the time. We thought, well, why don't we create a company? And also, why don't we create a podcast? So that's why BitcoinBasicsPodcast.com was born, to scratch our own itch. If we're going to have these conversations, why not record them at all? So that's it in a nutshell.
If your Bitcoins are on an exchange or mobile wallet, you could lose them in this bull run. CoinCompass.com is running a free 1-hour webinar on Sunday, 6 December 2020, where you can learn about cold storage, multi-sig, and best practices for securing your Bitcoin. Become a self-sovereign custodian of your investment by owning, not renting, your Bitcoins. To register and for more details, visit coincompass.com/webinar.
Yeah, thanks, Gordon. Yeah, I was very much like you. I remember the first time I got into Bitcoin, I was terrified. I was telling people I'll just buy and hold for the long term. And I did everything wrong. I should take my own advice. I traded in and out, thinking at any point this thing's going to collapse and go to zero. So, but we're well beyond that now. And hopefully we can start following our own advice, which is buy and hold and don't look at the price for 5 years.
Yes, I have sinned. I have bought Ripple before. I admit it. I'm not ashamed of it. I traded all the altcoins, but I'm back to Bitcoin now and Bitcoin only. So don't feel too bad if you lost your money trading altcoins and whatnot. I've done that, but when you look at it, Bitcoin really is the soundest money. And so,
hopefully, that's what we'll explain to people.
Well, let's see. Yeah, so we hope you enjoy the series. If you have any questions along the way, you can just go to bitcoinbasicspodcast.com. You can subscribe to our YouTube video, especially if you're listening to this audio on the audio podcast. You can also ask us a question there. There's a link to click a question. You can either type that question out or record it. And you can also subscribe to all our other social media platforms and whatnot there. So we'd appreciate you going to bitcoinbasicspodcast.com, where you can also get links to the Bitcoin Begins ebook as well, which is basically what this series is, a summary and sort of a sneak peek of that. So Faris, I'm ready to get stuck into the series. Anything you want to end on?
No, we really appreciate people listening to this, and please go to the link that Gordon suggested. If you have any questions, hit us up and we can answer them on the podcast.
bitcoinbasicspodcast.com. See you in the next episode.
Thanks for watching or listening. Please visit coincompass.com/free to register to our socials and discover other free content. Subscribing, liking, and following helps this content remain ad-free. Until next time.